99.9% of the time, I disagree with everything that Stephen A says, but I think he's right. Like, you got to stop. Let him be his own person. Let him take the bumps and bruises in the NBA or in the G League and stop over parenting. Welcome to episode 270 of Empty the Bench, here on the Empty the Bench podcast network presented by Playback. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. Follow us on social media for Empty the Bench at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Please like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm, it helps the views, and it helps us grow much faster. So please like and subscribe. Also, listen to Empty the Bench wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcast. You know the deal by now. We're on all the podcasting platforms. Also, check out the ETB Network Substack, etbnetwork.substack.com. If you want to check out our Substack, Alley-Oop Analytics, which comes out every Thursday, where we cover all the NBA trends. We have Baseball Bonanza. We have some gambling Substacks and a few more tricks up our sleeves. So etbnetwork.substack.com. It's $5 a month or $60 for the year. I guarantee you it's undervalued, and I would go check it out. And Empty the Bench and the ETB Network presented by Playback. Please listen later on in the show to find out more. Okay, so this is going to be a very NFL free agency frenzy heavy episode because we are quite literally in the free agency part of the calendar. And for most people who don't understand, if I say this wrong, Anthony, let me know. This is what they call the legal tampering period of the free agency scale, where basically you can have meetings, you can make agreements, but you can't sign anything until, well, when this show comes out officially on the 12th.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and most players aren't waiting for that time period to start. They're doing it as soon as they possibly can. I mean, teams are scooping up players as fast as they can, and I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you got bidding wars, and a lot of teams want these players, so first come, first serve.
If I can unmute myself, we're going to get into NFL free agency, as many moves as we possibly can, because we do have some other stuff. There's more sports news going on in the world besides the NFL free agency stuff, but that's going to be a big portion of this episode. And let's just get right into it. And the Seahawks maybe scratch my head just a little. So they signed Sam Darnold, which again, flashbacks of bad all the way back to the Jets days. Had a really good year in Minnesota. Everyone thought he was going back to Minnesota. Like, that was almost would you say that was almost a guarantee without saying it's an automatic guarantee?
Yeah, it didn't seem like a return to Minnesota was likely.
So everyone said, oh, it's a shoo-in. They'll go back because they can't 100% trust J.J. McCarthy because, again, hurt, missed a full season. But then there was a lot of talking going on whether they could have franchise tagged him, which that was kind of confusing that they didn't at least franchise tag him so they could hold him and then they could have had contract negotiations. But so that happens. The Seahawks were the last team I thought he would end up with, considering all the turmoil going on in Seattle right now, which involves another move, which we're going to talk about later, in DK Metcalf. They trade Geno Smith to the Raiders, which that one surprised me too. What do you make of the mess in Seattle?
Well, it's definitely interesting and definitely head-scratching. I mean, like you said, they trade Geno Smith. They make another trade for one of their other premium players away that we'll talk later on. So it seemed like, hey, like, they're going to go in a rebuild. It seemed like their new head coach saw what he had last year, got the most out of the players, and decided, to start a rebuild and build it up the way he wants to. And then they go out and pay Sam Darnold, and it's like, okay, well, I guess they're trying to win now, and they're going to pair Sam Darnold up with Jackson Smith and Jigba, who turned into a number one receiver. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet are good running backs, and they do have a good, talented young defense with a lot of good, young, promising players. But, when you trade away the players that they did, it did seem like they're going to go into a rebuild. So it's definitely an interesting fit. And then when you look at the Vikings, yes, you always knew J.J. McCarthy was the long-term solution, and he was going to be the quarterback of the future. So, but you thought, at least Sam Darnold could get at least a franchise tag, because J.J. McCarthy, not getting any game playing time in the regular season, coming off of a torn ACL, he's going to need time. So why not franchise tag Sam Darnold to kind of give your young quarterback kind of a one-year buffer window? Now Minnesota's in a predicament to where they're going to have to get one of these low-tier starters, like a bridge quarterback, or maybe you have to rush J.J. McCarthy in. So, it seemed like they could have brought Sam Darnold back for one season. I mean, and he has no say. If you franchise tag him, I mean, he could choose not to sign or not, but the player doesn't really have much leverage. Sam Darnold's definitely happy. He got the long-term contract he was looking for. For the Raiders, they were able to pair Geno Smith back up with Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll did give Geno Smith his best season of his career, and they did get to the playoffs. Pete Carroll's always been a guy that's always won everywhere he's been, and he always gets the most out of the quarterback. So it seems like now with them re-signing Max Crosby, bringing in Geno Smith, they are trying to compete right now.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this franchise, and I want to throw another name out there, even though I despise this quarterback currently. Do you see any notion in this wild and crazy NFL world where Aaron Rodgers could be in a Vikings purple uniform?
Well, he would finally complete the prophecy that Brett Favre set forth for him.
That's for sure. I mean, is there any logistical way that happens, or is that just like not really feasible?
I don't see it. I know there's small rumors that maybe Rodgers would want to go there, but I'm not sure Minnesota would want to bring him in. If anything, I think they would prefer a guy like Jacoby Brissett, because ultimately you want J.J. McCarthy to probably become the starter at some point this season. Just maybe not in week 1 or week 3, but maybe like week 6 or week 7, you might want him to take over a starting reign. Where Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to do a guy like J.J. McCarthy any favors. So I'm not sure if Minnesota would want him. I know there's rumors about the Steelers and the Giants being interested in Rodgers. I think the Steelers make all the sense in the world, but I don't think the Vikings make sense for Aaron Rodgers.
That's true. Now, to talk about the Geno Smith saga, because there was a little bit of drama that went on in Seattle because he wanted to be paid, and I couldn't believe this. He wanted to make like $40 to $45 million a year. And I guarantee you Seattle was kind of laughing in the background, saying, all right, dude, we paid you. We gave you, what was it, $50+ million a year when you made your run last time. And then you fell off. Now, a lot of people were saying that he probably lost like $100 million after losing those 2 games at the end of the year. If he wins, maybe he gets that large contract from Seattle. Who knows? And when people say, could 1 or 2 games be the difference? Yeah, 1 or 2 wins could be the difference. Or 1 or 2 really good performances could be the difference for Geno. Now, the Raiders are going nowhere either, in my opinion. I don't think they're in a mode where they're competing for the playoffs. Are they a better team than the last couple of seasons? Yeah, they are a much better team. And Brock Bowers is going to be a sensation for many years to come in that organization. And isn't it true he was tied or he had the catch record over Malik Neighbors?
Yes.
So, like, the guy's a stud. Like, they got to do everything in their power to keep that guy there and then building around. So, basically what happens is Geno doesn't get his money and he complains. And instead of trying to renegotiate, just on a whim, just says, I want out. I'm requesting a trade. And Seattle said, okay, we'll just send you to a place you really don't. Well, I shouldn't say that he doesn't want to go, but I wouldn't say the Raiders are exactly a competitive organization right now.
No, but I would definitely say both Seattle and Las Vegas have definitely upgraded their quarterback situation compared to last year. I think Sam Darnold is a better quarterback at this point in his career than Geno Smith. And I think Geno Smith's better than anything that the Raiders were putting out there last year. When you look at the when you look at the AFC West, now the Raiders aren't going to be very competitive and probably go to the playoffs. But now with Geno Smith, Pete Carroll there, you still got Brock Bowers. You're able to get Max Crosby back in. You'll get Christian Wilkins, the defensive tackle, back healthy. When you look at the division, the Kansas City Chiefs lost a decent amount of players this fall for agency. They lost Joe Thuney. They lost Trayshawn Warren. They lost Justin Reed. And then when you look at their division, the Broncos are going to be better. They brought in Drew Greenlaw and a couple other players. Obviously, the Chargers are only going to get better with Jim Harbaugh in his second year. And the Raiders may not be able to compete for a playoff spot, but they for sure is all going to be better than they were last year. So the Chiefs division is secretly becoming a very tough division that's not going to have too many easy wins like they did a couple years ago.
Yeah. So we'll see how this one plays out. I just thought this was very interesting because the moves kind of corresponded to each other. You don't see that very often between two teams in that regard. But let's talk about part 2 or 3 of Seattle here, because the bigger story was DK Metcalf to the Steelers. And I was a little shocked, a little bit. I didn't think Seattle was going to step up and, 1, trade for him, and 2, give him a 5-year, $150 million deal, which I know DK is one of the best when it comes to the wide receiver position, but I guarantee you nobody had 5 years, $150 million on the bingo card.
No, that was definitely, I think, a little overpaid for DK Metcalf. I mean, he's a great receiver, but the receivers that make in the 30+ million are top 3, top 5 receivers year in and year out. We're talking about guys like CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson. Those guys deserve in the $30 million plus. I feel like DK Metcalf is kind of like in a tier below that, and he probably should be closer to the $25 to $28 million a year mark, and he probably should get about a 3 to 4 year contract. Now, he obviously wanted all in for the 5-year, $30 million. So the Steelers were willing to pay it. Obviously, the Seahawks weren't. And they probably were looking at it like, hey, we got Jackson Singleton, Jigba, who's still on a rookie contract. He kind of established himself as our true number 1 receiver. We're confident enough with him and maybe bringing in and draft another receiver to go along with him. We'd rather do that than pay Metcalf 5 years and $150 million. So I think it kind of makes sense for both teams. Then you look at the Steelers now. Now you don't have to have George Pickens be your number 1 alpha receiver. I think he's going to flourish now as a number 2 receiver, not having to have the top corner on him every week, not getting the double coverage. He's going to flourish and really be able to become the best version of himself. Now, the one question for the Steelers is, who's going to get those guys the football? That's what they're going to have to figure out. Obviously, right now, they don't have that guy on their roster. And like I said earlier in the show, it looks like Aaron Rodgers might go there. And if they can protect Aaron Rodgers with those receivers in that defense, I've been saying it for a while, Nick. I think if Aaron Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, I think that could be a team that gets to the second round of the playoffs.
I agree with you, but I still think that would be a disappointment in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh fans have been waiting since the Ben Roethlisberger days to make a Super Bowl and to be competitive for another Super Bowl title. So as being in the second round of the playoffs is great, and that would be a massive improvement, even though they won 10 games last year and kind of got, would you say they were kind of disappointed or kind of shocked in the playoffs? A little bit, but I feel like there's a certain team that really effed this up big time. And I said it to you last episode. The Packers screwed this up really bad. Like, this had Packers like written all over it. Considering that Christian Watson, you and I talked about this last episode, Christian Watson has been a disaster as a number 1. He's a really good wide receiver with a lot of talent, but he can't stay on the field and be a number 1 guy. A number 1 guy has to be consistent and stay on the field. And not that I'm saying DK Metcalf is that either, because he's had some injuries also. But you can trust DK Metcalf to catch the football when he's out there and he's in a good situation. Do you think the Packers were a better option? I can think of a few options that were better than Seattle. I mean, better than Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, right now, Green Bay is in a better position. And I think DK Metcalf on the Packers is definitely a much scarier team than DK Metcalf on the Steelers. But I think also you got to factor in money. The Packers are now paying Jordan Love $55 million a year. The Steelers don't have a $50 million a year quarterback. So you also got to factor that in, that where the Packers willing to be able to pay Jordan Love $55 million a year while also getting DK Metcalf $30 million a year. That is a lot to tie up between two players that probably don't even rank top 5 in either of their positions in the league.
That's a good point. I still think I'm kind of surprised that Baltimore didn't get in that game. Also, I really that actually I think is the most prominent position that he would have fit in, even though like you said last episode, and I give you credit for saying it last episode, that the Baltimore Ravens are kind of an embarrassment of riches a little bit, where you bring in Derrick Henry, you have Lamar, you have pieces where you should be winning, but then you would have a number one wide receiver, which would take you out of the dungeon of being the least amount of yards caught by a wide receiver last year. And that's why, like, I don't know if this, like, I guess the question I'll ask you is, does this make them a Super Bowl contender, this move, the Steelers?
No, I don't think it makes them a Super Bowl contender. I still don't think they can beat a team like Buffalo or a team like Baltimore or a team like Kansas City in the playoffs. I think it just gets them one step further. Instead of them, losing the first round, I think this gets them one step further to the second round. But I don't think they can make it to the Super Bowl or win the AFC with their team.
So then, would you say the move even has any value if they're going to get eliminated in the second round?
I guess it depends on where your standards are, and I guess with Pittsburgh having all their Super Bowls, I guess their standards are probably much higher than a second round playoff appearance. So I guess for them and Steelers fans, it probably is no value.
Okay, I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's a great move to improve their roster, and maybe it takes the pressure off, like you said, of George Pickens, who had more drops than I've ever seen in the NFL by a guy with a big name. And like you said, maybe he doesn't get double teamed anymore also because of DK Metcalf being out there. So that spreads the defense out a little bit more and allows them to catch more footballs. But I guess we'll have to wait and see if this pays off for anything. All right, some quarterback news. We're going to go through some of these pretty quick. Daniel Jones finalizing a 1-year deal with the Colts. $14 million is the number. I'm kind of surprised, but at the same time, I'm assuming this is a competition type deal, right?
Yeah, I think this is kind of like the Indianapolis Colts safety blanket. I think Daniel Jones is a talented guy who may not have, a really high ceiling, but he's got a decent floor to where I think he can manage the game if the players around them do what they're supposed to do and do their job. I think Indianapolis can compete with a quarterback that can just manage the game. I think basically what this is if Anthony Richardson goes out there and he's so incompetent that he's costing you game to turn the ball over, I think you could put a guy in like Daniel Jones just at least to stay competent and be competitive with the talent you have around them. But this just goes to show, for a guy who was such a high draft pick in Anthony Richardson, and a lot of people said when you look at him talent-wise, 6'4", 240, running a 4.4 with a cannon arm, one of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen. The guy just hasn't been able to put it together and hasn't been able to figure out the mental aspect of the game. And this just goes to show maybe the coaching staff doesn't have as much confidence in him and needs a safety blanket because they're not sure Anthony Richardson can get them over the hump and make the adjustments and the improvements he needs.
Yeah. So I'm on the record as I'm not the biggest believer in Anthony Richardson. I think that his injuries are a problem. He's had quite a few of them now. Was he the one who made the dumb statement that not being able to go back in the game because he was too tired?
Yeah, that was him.
So I have a lot of questions about Anthony Richardson, whether he can be a franchise quarterback. Like, because if I'm not mistaken, he was drafted early and first round early, right? Like,
yeah, I want to say I think he was the 3rd or 4th overall pick in the draft.
So I can tell you right now, they're not getting that value out of him at all. And I think they're a little bit screwed a little bit with injuries and talent and kind of being a college football quarterback and not really like his game translating to the NFL as well. I don't know if you might see it differently than me because you're better at breaking down the aesthetics of people's games. But to me, it looks like he's more of a, like in Major League Baseball, they call it quadruple A, between triple A and the Major League Baseball level. So like you're good enough to get past the triple A, but you're not good enough to be in Major League Baseball. Do you see it like that? Do you see it any differently? How do you see that?
I definitely think he's talented enough and good enough to be in the NFL. It's just the problem is he can't get the little things together to put his talent all together. I think what it is you got a guy who has all the physical traits to play the position, but when it comes to quarterback, you got to have the physical traits along with the accuracy and along with the mental game. And I know Pat McAfee said a lot of fans are torn on that. Some fans like Anthony Richardson because he has so much upside, but some fans are over him because they said he's not the leader that you need, and he's not the guy that you want to be the quarterback and star of your franchise. And Pat McAfee said that if I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he said that if you were closer to the situation or you knew him more like he did, you'd be more along the sides of he's got some things to work on. So I'm not sure if he's got immaturity issues or what, but he's definitely doesn't seem like the answer, and they're definitely regretting that pick.
Yeah, I would say that the Colts situation is more a question mark. Not good, not bad. It's kind of indifferent right now. There's no exact answer to say what it is, but I understand why they made this move. Daniel Jones can be a decent quarterback. I don't know if he'll ever be a starter officially ever again, but it kind of reminds me of Tony Romo and Kyle Orton in Dallas a little bit, where Jerry gave Kyle Orton $10 million to basically sit on the bench. And if I'm not mistaken, he actually got in and played a few games when Romo went down for injury. And the insurance policy ended up paying off partially because of it. Now, I would say Daniel Jones has more talent than Kyle Orton by far. So I think they're getting the value they need. But let's see if Anthony Richardson picks up his game and maybe this motivates him to play better. Because I don't think the Colts are going to be afraid to bench him this time around if he plays crappy. So we'll see what happens on that front. Well, speaking of crappy quarterback situations, the Jets. And the Jets signed Justin Fields. Now, my initial reaction was about as shocked as you could possibly be. One, they overpaid him by far. They gave him 2 years, $40 million with $30 million guaranteed. And I was just like, wow. Like, I don't know. And a lot of people like in our Slack chat for our network were saying like, who else are you getting? And I'm like, anybody else, not Justin Fields. This guy can't do it at the NFL level. And now you're putting him basically as the head guy on a New York franchise where he's going to get scrutinized for every little thing that he does by the New York media. I mean, can you make sense of this at all?
So, when you look at the quarterbacks that were out there in free agency, I mean, there really wasn't much options. Obviously, Sam Darnold wasn't going to come back. Obviously, they're moving on from Aaron Rodgers. So, Russell Wilson, you've seen his age, and he kind of fell off at the end of last season. So you really don't want Russell Wilson. So when you look at Justin Fields, what was the problem with the Jets last season? They couldn't protect the quarterback. Aaron Rodgers was running for his life, and he's not an athletic quarterback. You just brought in a guy who's probably the second or third best running quarterback in the league. So if you have a struggling offensive line, Justin Fields can make it work. And he did show in Pittsburgh that if you have, a decent team with a good defense, he can win games. I do agree with you, Nick. I would say that he probably was the right pick. He probably was the best option. But I agree with you, too, that they definitely overpaid for him. I mean, when I saw the money, $30 million guaranteed for a quarterback that may not even be on your roster or even be the starter in 2026, I think that was a little much. I think he should have got a similar deal to what Daniel Jones got. He should have got maybe a 1 year, prove it deal of like 14, 15 million with not much guaranteed. With this contract, $30 million. I mean, if he's on the team for 1 year, $30 million for 1 year is a lot for Justin Fields. And I'm not sure if Justin Fields deserved a 2-year contract if you are planning on keeping him for 2 years. I mean, if he works out and, can get this team to 8 or 9 wins, then it's worth it. But I definitely think he was the right decision and the right move, but they overpaid for him.
I mean, I was saying to Nick D, because him and I are both miserable Jet fans who haven't seen anything in the playoffs. I said, like you just said, if they somehow can unlock the value of a quarterback, which, by the way, the Jets are one of the worst teams at unlocking talent from the quarterback position. Because look at the list of quarterbacks they've had, and they haven't been able to do what they need to do to get a franchise quarterback into the organization. But if they can figure it out and he could be a B-level quarterback, maybe $40 million is cheap if they could somehow get him to be more than a halfway decent offensive option. Now, being a younger guy, he could probably escape the pocket way better than Aaron Rodgers could, and maybe that'll help avoid some of the sacks. But the Jets' offensive line has to be better too to protect Justin Fields. I don't think that offensive line was protecting air, to be quite honest. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was a lot of money. And this guy has proven that he really can't be a starter in the league. I mean, heck, the Steelers went back to Russell Wilson after giving Justin Fields a chance, which didn't make any sense to me at all. And I don't know.
He does get to pair back up with his Ohio State teammate, Garrett Wilson.
Yes, and I don't know if you saw on Instagram that Garrett Wilson liked the post when they signed Justin Fields. Now, I don't know if that was just camaraderie for the Jets and just liking a post, or if he actually likes Justin Fields being the starter. I don't know. But I have nothing to root for the Jets this coming season. I'm not expecting much.
I'll give you some hope, Nick. I mean, look at the last few years. There's been a quarterback that everybody thought was a bust. He goes and signs somewhere else, and magically he's a Pro Bowl level quarterback. We've seen it with Geno Smith a couple years ago. We've seen it with Baker Mayfield, and we saw it with Sam Darnold last year. So, I mean, if that's a trend that's going to happen, I mean, maybe this year the luck goes for the Jets.
I mean, our luck would be that somehow Justin Fields will get hurt somewhere early in the season, and then you're going to get all the questions again. Well, you shouldn't have got rid of Aaron Rodgers. You should have brought back for another season. All right. Like, the Jets are cursed. They're just cursed.
Now, with them signing Fields, does this take the Jets out of the running for drafting a quarterback or trading up for a quarterback like Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
I want Cam Ward so bad. Like, I just think he's a really good quarterback. He can throw the football for distance, which I think the Jets need really bad. I really want Cam Ward. That's the guy that I had my eye on. I could give two shits about Shedeur Sanders. I just think that's a disaster waiting to happen, whoever's locker room that he ends up in. And did you see the crazy report, by the way, speaking of Shedeur Sanders, that his draft stock value is like dropping by the day?
Yeah, I did see that.
And like they're talking about like 6th, 7th, like or deeper. I don't know why it's dropping. I think that's more of a misconceived notion that's going on. But I don't know. They were just saying his value was dropping. But I would want Cam Ward. That's the answer to the question. I think Cam Ward could be a really valued quarterback that's NFL ready. All right. Let's move on. Commanders trade for Laramie Tunsil.
Yeah, they gave up a decent amount, a lot of draft picks. I think it was 4 total, and it was like a second, a third, a fourth, and something else. I mean, Laramie Tunsil is still one of the premier tackles. He does make a decent amount of money, and he is getting up there in age. But it goes to show you, Nick, that the Commanders, are still trying to capitalize on the success of Jaden Daniels, the fact that he's going to be on this cheap rookie contract, and they're going all in, and they've been making a lot of moves. This is on top of the fact that they already got Deebo Samuel. So this team is trying to compete on, definitely try to get past the Eagles this year.
This is all in. This is what I look at with the Commanders. How the Dallas Cowboys said we were all in last offseason, and all they did was sign Zeke Elliott and called that all in. The Commanders are all in. Like, they are quite literally all in. They're making moves. They want to improve on last year, as they were a couple plays away from making the Super Bowl. And I think with this ownership in place, which I currently like the Commanders' ownership, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get that team to grow. I mean, you probably have one of the top 3 quarterbacks right now in the NFL, and Jaden Daniels. I mean, give this guy the resources. They're doing it the right way, going out and trying to build the team bigger and better, not dropping off and saying, "Oh, well, positive, we almost made it to the Super Bowl." No. Now you got to make the Super Bowl. You got to compete and try to win. And this just, every little piece helps. And by the way, I looked up the deal. It's a 3rd and 7th rounders in 2025. So this draft, and second and fourth rounders in 26. So, in my opinion, two of the picks being 7 rounders, it's basically they traded for 2 picks, essentially, which is not bad if you think about it.
Yeah, for a franchise left tackle, I mean, that's one of the premium positions and probably one of the 4 hottest positions to get. I mean, those guys get paid, and when they do get traded, they get traded for a premium. So, the Commanders are getting more weapons and getting more protection for Jaden Daniels while also making some minor moves to improve their defense. I'm guessing, with this draft coming up being so strong at defense, they're going to probably draft some more young defensive players. And like you said, this is the way to go. You don't just get complacent. When you get a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, you go all in and capitalize as much as you can on this opportunity.
No, I agree. And by the way the Commanders are doing it reminds me a little bit of Howie Roseman and the Eagles, what they've been doing, where slowly they're making those moves, but they're calculated moves in that regard. Because if you look at the way the Eagles were, everything was very meticulously calculated to build their franchise the right way. And look at the Eagles now. They win a Super Bowl title and they're built for a long term for the next, 3 to 5 years at least, that they can be competitive, even though they made some trades. Like I think I just saw they traded CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think they traded also. And they made a few other moves. But I think the Commanders are following the Eagles model in that regard.
Yeah, and Howie Roseman is the best GM in football, so what a better guy to emulate.
Yeah, so I think this is a perfect move, and it just helps build the franchise up bigger, better, and maybe they compete for a Super Bowl. We'll see. Now back to my miserable world again. Davante Adams signs with the Rams. This comes after obviously being on the Jets, traded from the Raiders. Had a 29, technically, I rounded up to 30, but it was a $29.9 million salary cap hit with no guaranteed money. So basically, the Jets said, look, we can't trade him. Adios. There's the door. We're going to cut you. We get that $30 million in salary cap space back. And Davante hits the market and can go wherever he wants. And I think you made a funny point last week, and it was one of the clips that went out also where you said, you know what? Maybe he should just move away from Aaron Rodgers and just find a place where he could fit in. Now, I didn't think he was going to go to the Rams. That kind of surprised me a little. And the Rams kind of are a little hypocritical a little bit here because they have that odd situation going on with Cooper Kupp. And now the reports look like he's going to be released when the league year starts because they couldn't find a trade partner. But they said they wanted to get younger at the wide receiver position. Now, if my math is correct, Davante Adams is older than Cooper Kupp, right?
Yeah, you're definitely right on that, Nick. He's definitely older age-wise. So they didn't get younger, age-wise. But when you look at where the receivers are today, Davante Adams plays like a much younger receiver. Davante Adams still plays, maybe not like the prime top 3 receiver in the league, Davante Adams, like we saw in Green Bay, but he's still a true number 1 receiver. And we saw how much he contributed for a mess and a dumpster fire in the Jets. And even when he was playing in that dumpster fire in the Vegas Raiders, he still was contributing. So I still think he's, at this stage of his career, yes, he may be older, but I still feel like in terms of how much football he has left, I still think he's got a couple more years. I think he's much more further than what Cooper Kupp is. Cooper Kupp is a guy who has had a lot of injuries. He came in the league a little older than most rookies do. He was a guy who was used a lot, a guy who they were throwing the ball so many times to. And I mean, over time, the guy took a beating. I still think he's a good receiver that can contribute, but I don't think he's no longer that true number 1 receiver. And I do think Davante Adams is an upgrade. I don't know if you saw, Nick, but Puka Nacua, who famously wears number 17. Well, Davante Adams has always wore 17, so people are wondering, hey, is Davante Adams going to get a new jersey number? Well, I saw a report earlier that Puka Nacua is going to change his number. I think he's going to go with number 12 so that Davante Adams can keep his lucky number 17.
Oh, God, I always find that petty when someone has to give up their jersey to somebody else. But you know what? And I'm going to go back to what we were talking about earlier a little bit. I'm surprised that Davante didn't go to Pittsburgh and explore that. But that probably goes to the point I just made also that maybe he just wants to get away from Aaron Rodgers and just say, okay, I need my space. You go where you want. I'll go where I want. That way there's no more issues and we don't get blamed for each other's failures.
He's also a West Coast guy, and I think he preferred to be playing for a West Coast team.
Yes, I think he wanted warmer climate was part of the report. He wanted I think Matt Stafford's also a good throwers quarterback. Fits the Davante Adams profile for kind of being a slot receiver. And so that works in Davante Adams' favor because Matt Stafford likes to air the football out, and that's what Davante Adams does best, running slot routes, and that works for him. So I guess this is a good move. I wouldn't say it's a perfect move, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely makes the Rams better. But how much better? I mean, we shall see. I still don't think they can beat the Eagles or the Commanders. But I definitely think it makes them slightly better. And like you said, with Kyron Williams, that running game with Matthew Stafford, I think this can be a team that is definitely competitive.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Davante's Davante. He'll definitely put up numbers, but let's see if he actually fits in with the Rams. I think that's the biggest scenario. We'll see. Empty the Bench is presented by Playback. Watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience, from playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about. Win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/ETB network to find out more, including our live stream schedule. And now back to the show. Speaking of chemistry and scenarios and fitting in, Myles Garrett staying with the Browns. This one I did not have on the bingo card either. And what I also didn't have on the bingo card was $123.5 million guaranteed for the, I think it was the largest non-quarterback guarantee in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, he had to, get a bigger deal than what Max Crosby and everybody else got.
I thought, he was making demands, trade demands to get out of Cleveland. But what is that dumb saying? When money talks, money walks. I mean, can we just admit that he just got flat out overpaid and that's why he's still there?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at this, I think his hands were tied. I mean, he looked at this situation. I mean, I don't think it really was about money. I think he really wanted to go to a contender. And I mean, I saw reports that he even wanted to meet with the Cleveland Browns owner. And the owner was like, nah, meet with the GM. He handles all football operations.
That was stupid.
You got your star player, and you're going to, stop and not have a meeting with them and decline a meeting. I mean, that was stupid. So I think, Myles Garrett was put in a position where the team wasn't even trying to work with him. They weren't going to give him any of his trade demands. So he was basically put in a position where, okay, well, they're not going to trade me. If I try to hold out, they're going to find me. I'm going to lose money. I'm not going to get my current deal. And Cleveland was probably like, hey, we'll give you $40 million a year. We'll give you all this guaranteed money and just shut up. And I feel like Myles Garrett was put in a position where he had no choice but to take the money and smile.
Well, first of all, I don't think any other team was going to offer $40 million a year for him to have a non-quarterback guarantee of that high. I tell you that right now. If he went to, I heard Buffalo was one place he was looking. I heard Baltimore was one place that was looking. Those teams were not paying him $40 million a year. They couldn't afford it, number one. And what was the dumb thing he was saying also? Oh, from Cleveland to Canton, he was saying, which I think is the most ridiculous thing in the world also, because the team is never going to be as good as him. He will always be the best player. And I think what also helped that situation, this kind of went under the radar a little, but Deshaun Watson taking a restructure. People that went totally under the radar. Nobody, it wasn't even news. People didn't even talk about it. So that probably gave them more money. First of all, I think Jimmy Haslam is one of the worst owners in the NFL. Whether it comes to overpaying the wrong guys or dealing with a Deshaun Watson situation, which he probably never should have done in the first place, to telling the GM to take the heat instead of him, which I thought was kind of ridiculous. But I guess it's worth the investment. I don't know.
I mean, like I said, they had no choice. And like I said, I think Garrett, obviously, yeah, he wouldn't have got $40 million or that guarantee money from anybody else. I think he probably would have got maybe 35, or maybe he would have got the same contract that Max Crosby got from a contender team. But like I said, the Cleveland Browns have been and proven over the last 25 years to be a very bad, dysfunctional organization. And they have one of the worst, if not the worst owner in the league, who won't even, have a meeting with his own best player. And like I said, I think they just, completely overpaid for him and basically told Garrett to take the money. And there's basically, we're not going to trade you and there's nothing you could do. So, it's kind of unfortunate as a Bills fan. I would have loved to see Garrett. He's one of, if not the best defensive player in all of football, but he's basically going to stuck having his whole career in Cleveland. And hopefully maybe he could get to the playoffs again before he retires.
Which I don't know if I'm holding my breath on that one, to be quite honest. Speaking of the Bills, now seeing this news come out of the blue, because let's remind everybody, Josh Allen was not a free agent when this news came out. And all of a sudden, we get news that Josh Allen is signing a 6-year, $330 million contract with $250 million of it guaranteed, which is a lottery victory in most people's books. Were you surprised that they redid the full contract?
No, I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, if you follow Bills insiders and really dig deep into what the offseason was going to do, you knew that the Josh Allen contract extension had a very high likely probability. Because the thing is, yeah, he's on a 4-year deal, and you're probably thinking the guy with 4 years left, you're not going to give him a contract extension. Well, actually, you are, because you're going to give him a contract extension because you're going to take that 4 years, turn it to 6. And what it's going to do is it's going to lower your cap hit for the first 2 years. And with the salary cap constantly going up, the further you push the money down, the lower the percentage he is going to take of the cap. So it does make complete sense. And why not sign him now? And instead of signing him 2-3 years later, where instead of $55 million a year, it's going to cost you more money. And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's a lot of money. I mean, if you think about it, Josh Allen could have gotten more money. I mean, he took $55 million. Dak Prescott's making 60. If Josh Allen wanted to, Josh Allen could have easily got 61. But he took 55, which is right around what, unless if you're Dak Prescott, which is basically what all these other quarterbacks have been getting. Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence. They all been kind of getting around that $55 million a year mark. So it makes sense that the Bills needed money because they have a lot of players that they need to be signed. They're still trying to negotiate with James Cook, so they need to free up money. Cutting Von Miller, who is kind of getting old and not the same player, that saves some money as well. So it makes complete sense. And what a lot of people got to look into is what was his percentage at cap at signing? If you look at Josh Allen, he's only taken up about 19% of his cap with the increase in salary cap. That's only the 13th highest in NFL history. So guys like Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, when they signed, they were getting close to 22 to 24% of the cap. So Josh Allen's percentage of the cap is much lower than that. So I think this makes complete sense for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I was just more shocked by the biggest guarantee in NFL history at $250 million, which is basically like 80 to 85% of the contract being guaranteed. So, number one, you better knock on wood that he doesn't get hurt, number one, because he's had small injuries here and there.
Well, let me say this, Nick. You know what quarterback has the longest active starting streak in the NFL?
It's him. It's him. Yeah. I mean, he's had little knick-knack injuries, I would call it, like arm and shoulder and elbow. Wasn't he wearing like a specialty glove or something on his hand? I can't remember.
Yeah, he messed up his wrist in week 1 and kind of just played through it. And that's the type of quarterback Josh Allen does. And he really prides himself on durability and really being able to play every game. And I mean, outside of Patrick Mahomes, there's probably not another quarterback that you could say is at that much of a guarantee as Josh Allen is. So it definitely, I think, makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. He was never going anywhere, regardless. He's going to be a Buffalo Bill for his whole career. He's one of those guys that's going to be a career guy and just fit into the atmosphere, and they're just going to have to build around him. Like, there's a very few guys that I think franchise. Mahomes is one. Josh Allen is another. Lamar is another. Those three guys are franchise guys. They're going to be with their teams for the long haul, regardless. I don't know. Do you think of any others as franchise term like those three, or no?
It's probably just Pat Mahomes, Allen, Lamar. I would put Joe Burrow in there, and Jalen Hurts is coming up there. He might put himself in that conversation after winning the Super Bowl, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Jaden Daniels there. But yeah, you got around those 3 to 5 elite guys who are just different than everybody else. With Josh Allen, like I said, I think he will take the Bills to the promised land, and he's not the reason why they're losing. It's definitely the defense. And you look at the playoff losses. They're scoring points, but the defense is just giving up too much. And a lot of people are like, oh, what about the guaranteed money? Well, look how much guaranteed money Deshaun Watson's got. I think Josh Allen is a guy who definitely deserved it more than Watson. And at least now we can say Josh Allen's got the most guaranteed money in NFL history and not Deshaun Watson.
Well, just to put a bow on that, like I said before, Jimmy Haslam will always go down as one of the worst financial owners in NFL history. I mean, Deshaun Watson's contract, essentially, if I'm not mistaken, was fully guaranteed, basically, when he signed it, which I'm sure your mouth dropped, my mouth dropped, the whole NFL fan community dropped when they saw that his contract was fully guaranteed. So I think this holds more value, and he definitely earned his money for sure. And now you just got to finish the James Cook negotiations, which that guy's a stud, and he's going to be a stud for a long time. Now, if I'm not mistaken, also, I saw a tweet from Adam Schefter laying out all the moves that the Bills have done so far. And I did the math. It's approximately like $515 million they've spent in the offseason. They're all in, right?
Well, a lot of it's re-signing their own. They gave Gregory Rousseau a big contract extension. They gave Terrell Bernard a huge contract extension.
Shakir.
They gave Khalil Shakir a contract extension. And then you gave Josh Allen the contract extension. You went out and signed Josh Palmer, who's that deep at receiver that they really needed. They really struggled at getting deep because Khalil Shakir is a slot guy. They really needed that boundary guy to get separation down the field. They brought him in. They brought in Michael Hyatt, who's going to be the replacement for Von Miller. And I think that they're going to draft a lot of good defensive players too. So I don't think that they're done.
I just was shocked when I saw the amount of money they spent, but they're all in. Again, they proved that they want to win, and that's what's most important. All right, let's move around to some other sports now that we've made it through all the NFL. And this story comes across, and LeBron James confronts Stephen A. Smith. Now, everyone who's listening to this right now and everyone who's been following this story is probably saying, what? LeBron confronts Stephen A. Smith? Yeah, well, Stephen A. Smith was sitting courtside at a Laker game. I forgot which game it was. But basically, I think this was before the game was over. Like, it was during a timeout or whatever in a blowout game. And LeBron confronts Stephen A. about his son. Because Stephen A. has been very critical of Bronny, which, first of all, everyone should be critical of Bronny. He should not even be in the NBA currently. And whatever, and I'm trying to find the exact quote that he said because I can't find it. But, it says, once he talks about, I'm pleading with you as a father, I can't. Basically, he was trying to plead with Stephen A. to say, I'm a father, like, can you leave my son alone? No, that's not how this works. You're in the NBA. You're not, there's no being treated with kid gloves when you're in a professional sport.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say to that too is I think what LeBron was more referring to is he knows every player in the NFL, in the NBA, in the NFL is going to be criticized. I mean, that's the the nature of the sport. That's why we watch and we analyze and we criticize and critique what these players do. Look at LeBron. He's been the most critiqued player his whole career. But I don't think LeBron was upset about that. I think what he was upset about is what Stephen A. Smith said about LeBron as a father and about how he thinks LeBron's parenting is putting Bronny in a bad position to not succeed. And I don't think that's fair to LeBron because I think LeBron has put Bronny James in a position to succeed. I think he sent him to a good university in school. He obviously had the best coaches growing up. And then even with the Los Angeles Lakers, they really didn't rush him. He got to play the first couple games, got a couple minutes of NBA minutes, seen what NBA basketball was like, got sent down to the G League, got to, get his bumps and bruises in the G League. And then he started succeeding in the G League, dropping like 20, 25 points for multiple games. And as a two-way player in the NBA, this is what you do. You start them off in the NBA for a couple games. You see what they do. You put them in the G League. Once they have a good, successful couple good game stretch, you bring them back to the NBA and see what improvements he made. And that's exactly what the Lakers have been doing with LeBron or with Bronny. He plays good in the G League. He earns a couple NBA minutes. You bring him in the NBA and you go back and forth. That's the whole point of being a two-way player. And Stephen A. Smith was complaining, saying that that's not the way, and he's putting too much pressure on Bronny. So I think LeBron James has a right to say that. And one last thing I'll say is, you got people like Stephen A. Smith and all these other guys who are criticizing LeBron for being a bad father. Have you ever seen Stephen A. Smith one time go on national television and talk about what Michael Jordan's kids are doing right now?
That's a good point. I'll give you that one for sure. There's certain things that you said that I would push back on a little bit, which you're in the NBA. Like you're going to take punches from NBA media, including national guys who cover the sport for many years, including Stephen A., who's covered the NBA for a very long time. This is not any different. Like Stephen A. would do this to anybody. If it doesn't just have to be LeBron, like it would be anybody who's a star and has their kid in the league. But let's be real and admit facts. The only reason Bronny is in the NBA is because LeBron's pushing to get him into the NBA draft. LeBron getting the Lakers to pick him up. To be honest, I don't think any team was going to draft Bronny if it wasn't for the Lakers. I think that Stephen A. has some points, and this is rare coming from me because 99.9% of the time I disagree with everything that Stephen A. says. But I think he's right. Like, you got to stop. Let him be his own person. Let him take the bumps and bruises in the NBA or in the G League and stop over-parenting in this scenario. Because you did the work. You got him to the NBA. You got him drafted by the Lakers. Now let him play ball. Stop over-defending your son and let him play.
But Nick, he really wasn't defending his son. He was defending what Stephen A. Smith said about LeBron's parenting. And I think that's something that really, hurt him to the core. And I mean, he could take all the, the bashing himself as a player. And, if you want to see Bronny James isn't that good, I mean, he hasn't said anything bad about that before. I think it's when you bring his parenting into question. I think that's what made LeBron so upset about this situation. And like I said, yes, Stephen A. Smith is honest and critiques every player, but he doesn't really critique a lot of other guys' parenting. And I think that's what he was most upset about. And I think Bronny does have some talent. Yeah, did LeBron being in the league help him get drafted? Of course it did. But Bronny James does have talent. He has a great vertical. He's got a great basketball IQ, and he's a great defender. I mean, when you look at his attributes, he's got a lot of similarities to a guy who won a championship in the NBA and Gary Payton II. So Bronny James, I think, can be an NBA player. I just think, obviously, LeBron, being his father, helped him get in there much sooner than he probably would have otherwise.
I mean, so I'm reading the quote. So Smith added, "How are you doing him favors? We know that he's not ready yet, and I'm saying this with compassion. You know what these numbers mean. You know what it's going to do to your son, to people that are missing out on opportunities, that are busting their tail on other NBA teams in the G League in Europe and everywhere else. What kind of opportunity they're starving for. You're exposing your son." There's a lot going on in that quote, number one. I think he's right and wrong in parts of that quote. I do think he took some opportunity away from someone who probably was ready to be in the NBA. Because again, being drafted 55th is not short. Like that's a high pick in the second round. I mean, so I get from that standpoint. Now, the other standpoint of what do the numbers mean and what kind of opportunity they're starving for. Like, anyone could starve to be a professional athlete. I don't think you're getting, that's not saying anything different.
But then how come no one complains about Giannis's brothers getting opportunities over other people?
Well, because Giannis's brother really doesn't play at all.
Well, he's technically taking a roster spot over someone in the G League who's earning that spot too. So
And
what
I
you're
agree
saying
with
about
you.
Bronny, you can apply that to Giannis's brothers as well. But Stephen A. Smith never talks about the privileges that Giannis's brothers have gotten from the Bucks.
No, I agree with you totally. And I think he ended up getting a ring the year they won the title, also, which is ridiculous because he didn't even. They put him on the court in whatever game it was that they clinched at the end of it, and got to be part of the game. But he doesn't do anything on the court. So I agree with you in that scenario. But I feel like sometimes LeBron brings on the unnecessary arrows that are thrown at him from time to time. And then you get guys like Stephen A. say, look, man, like you bring some of the arrows onto yourself and you don't realize it from time to time. Because, like, if you remember leading all the way up to the draft, LeBron was like over obsessingly selling his son. Like, we get it. We get that he's a really good player. No one's questioning the talent. But didn't he only play 5 games at USC because of the medical condition that he came down with?
I think he played more than 5, but he didn't play a large majority of the season. Yeah, he had the heart condition early on, and then started to play towards the end. But yeah, he really didn't play a lot of college, and he was only there for 1 year. And yeah, to your point, Nick, a lot of people always go back to that tweet that LeBron had where I think it was, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it was like, I'm watching NBA League Pass, and I know my son's better than half these guys on the court or something like that.
Yes. I remember that tweet very well, actually. And I remember losing my mind when I saw the tweet. What do you mean he's better than half the guys? Come on, dude. You can't tell me you believe that. We know, first of all, everyone is biased about whether it's their significant other or their family member or someone that they're really close to. Everyone is more biased about someone that they know because that's just how we act in a society naturally. We're going to be more positive with our family or our relationships or anybody that we're around. That's normal. But when you're taking the NBA and heading into the journey, which is the NBA, you can't do that. You just can't do that. And he's got to and this is going to sound cliche, but he's got to earn his own supper to stay in the NBA. And the only thing that's helping him in that regard is, like we say, with LeBron. LeBron is going to keep him more shelf stable in the NBA because LeBron has all the power when it comes to the Lakers. It's not the ownership. It's not the commissioner. It's LeBron can basically control the strings like a marionette over the Lakers organization. Say, I want him up here now. Okay, we're not going to piss off LeBron James. We'll bring him up. So I think more my point is that I get why he's upset, but at the same time, this is the real life portion of professional sports. And you're going to take hits, whether you like them or not. But yeah, that's pretty much. I wish this was a non-story, to be quite honest with you. But when Stephen A. gets into it with somebody, you just can't be. So that's pretty much that. The part 2 of this, obviously, which people kind of threw under the radar also, was LeBron James's groin injury. And now being out for, I think they said like 1 to 3 weeks, they were projecting, which, by the way, and I think they already lost a game or 2 already with him being out. I think they're in trouble a little bit. And I understand Luka's the one, and he did that in Dallas. But did you see the reports that like guys are driving by him defensively?
Yeah, Luka was never known for his defense, and yeah, this definitely hurts. At least it wasn't as long as they projected. Hopefully, it's closer to that 1 week mark than it is the 2 to 3 weeks. I think as long as they can stay as one of the top 4 seeds in the West, I think that this team could still have much success. I think if you have a healthy Luka, a healthy LeBron, Austin Reeves, Jackson Hayes, some of the other complimenting players, I really said this before. I can only see 2 teams in the West beating them, and that's OKC and Denver. And like you said, Nick, we don't know if we can really trust OKC. LeBron's won multiple titles. Luke has been to the NBA Finals. We don't know about OKC. So maybe there's only one, if not two teams in the West that could beat, the Lakers. So I think as long as they can stay a top 4 seed and avoid one of those two teams in the first round, I think they can go to the second round, if not to the Western Conference Finals. So ultimately, I definitely think it hurts. I don't think it ends their season, but it's definitely going to make keeping that top 4 seed spot much tougher.
Yeah, I'm slightly more concerned a little bit because, again, LeBron's 40 years old. There's a lot of mileage on those legs and that body. And you're starting to see it over the last couple of years, more and more compiling injuries with LeBron. And it's kind of scary that the Lakers are still relying on a 40-year-old LeBron James to lead a franchise. Now, the debate is going to be, did they make the trade for Luka because they eventually want him to be the franchise leader and fit in? Yeah. Can he do it in LA? I have no idea, to be honest. But this is going to be a huge stretch for the Lakers, who are currently, I think, the 3 seed. They were trailing by like a game or a half game, but right as he went out on injury. I see them dropping a few spots if he's going to be out for even 1 to 2 weeks.
You got the Warriors as the 6th seed, who seems to be playing great football ever since they bought Jimmy Butler, so they're on the rise. You got the Grizzlies, who now Jaren Jackson's out, so we got to see how they're going to go. I know John Morant's been doing a good job carrying them. And then you got the Rockets at 5th, who kind of goes back and forth. So the Warriors, I could definitely see as the one team that can catch them. At least the Lakers kind of got a couple games ahead of them. But yeah, Nick, there's some teams that are competing right behind them.
The thing is, I think the Lakers should be afraid of the Warriors, regardless of where they end up. And I could see them losing a series to the Warriors, even if they're the lower seed and the Warriors have to go on the road. I think they're a better team, to be quite honest. The Rockets, I could take them or leave them. I think they're just playing good basketball, but I don't think it'll translate to the playoffs. Memphis is kind of a wild card because, again, I don't know what to expect out of them. They're a good team, but Jaren Jackson being done for the year is going to kill them big time. So I think the Warriors is the one team they really got to watch. And if LeBron can't be the same guy, even if he comes back, they're going to get destroyed by the Warriors if that's who they're playing, if it's a 3-6 matchup. All right, quickly, let's do some quick UFC to end the episode. I wanted to talk about UFC 313 because there are a lot of headlines out of the main event with Pereira and I always mispronounce it. Ankalaev. Is that how you say it?
Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah. I saw the translation because when he was talking to Rogan and basically saying he didn't like the fact that he was being pushed up against the cage and that the ref didn't break it up. Now, you know this world way better than I do, but isn't it true that you can't technically hold someone against the cage for a long period of time?
As long as you're like throwing knees and throwing punches, if you got someone controlled against the fence, most of the time it's your job to get yourself off the fence. And I know I've seen a lot of UFC fighters who had their comments about this, including like Sean Brady. And he even said, it's your job. If someone pushes you against the fence and they're punching and kicking you, it's your job to get out of that. And yeah, Alex Pereira did stop all 12 takedowns, but Ankalaev did have control. Now, when I looked at this fight, I originally had it scored, 3-2 for Alex Pereira. I thought round 1 was definitely Alex's. I thought round 5 was definitely Alex's, and then round 2 and 4 was Ankalaev's. I think the deciding factor in this fight was the 3rd round, which a lot of people had, different perspectives. Ankalaev had the control, but it looked like Alex Pereira outstriked him. Now, when I rewatched the fight, it looked like Ankalaev won that 3rd round, so I do think they made the right decision. But this was a fight that could have gone either way, and I think Alex Pereira wasn't as aggressive as he normally is because he was so worried about the takedowns, and Ankalaev had a great game plan. He was able to strike with them, he was able to throw in elite light kicks, and he was able to control him against the fence. I think they're going to have a rematch because of how close this match was, and there's really nobody else in the division for these guys to fight. So I think they'll have a rematch, and I think Ankalaev proved that he's going to be a tough guy to take the belt from.
Now, I was talking to Zan about this also. the UFC desperately wanted to keep Pereira at the top and there was obviously another cherry pick fight out there already with him and Jones, right? That was really the big star fight, the big money fight that they wanted to get. Obviously, they can't do that now because of him losing the fight, and I'm assuming that's why they're going to go for a quick rematch. What, probably in the next 3 to 4 months?
Yeah, I think now that Ankalaev is the champion, he's the A side, so he's got more say. He's probably going to want to get this at the Abu Dhabi card, so he's got more of the kind of like the home field, home crowd advantage in October. So I can see that as a likely matchup. But now instead of Alex Pereira being able to go right to heavyweight, we're probably finally going to get the Tom Aspinall John Jones fight this summer.
And there was a lot of rumors around that fight too, right? Whether it was actually going to happen or if Aspinall was going to retire. I heard that too, because he's on the older side, right?
Aspinall is only like 31 years old, so he's right in the prime. But John Jones is definitely older. John Jones is 37 years old, and he keeps saying he wants Alex Pereira or he's going to retire. But I think now with Alex Pereira losing and how much money UFC is willing to pay for him and Tom Aspinall, that fight's probably going to happen. And a guy like John Jones, who's been a champion for so long and has never been beaten, Tom Aspinall is going to be the first guy where people are going to say he may be favored over John Jones.
And John Jones is kind of, I don't know, from my perspective, it has been a little Conor McGregor-esque over the last couple of years, where like he keeps saying, I'm going to come out, I'm going to fight, I can beat anybody, and then we don't hear from him, or he gets in trouble, or he gets randomly drug tested everywhere he goes, or I don't know. Where would you rank? Well, I would say McGregor is worse, but I don't know. Between those two guys, who do you think is the more ego-riddled person?
Oh, it's definitely McGregor, and I don't think McGregor at this point you can trust a lot of what he says. Obviously, John Jones says a lot of stuff that doesn't end up being true, but I think at this point I would trust John Jones saying he's going to fight more so than Conor McGregor, and at least in John Jones' sake, he can say he's the greatest of all time and never lost. Where McGregor has some losses and doesn't have an unblemished career.
That's true. I mean, I've always wanted to see Jones fight. I've never seen him fight, so that'll be interesting to see. I think Jones Pereira would be the big ticket fight if they can eventually get back to it. But here's the thing, though: if Jones Aspinall happens, how long would it take to get to that rematch if that somehow is feasible? And Pereira wins the rematch, and Jones wins his match. How long would that take?
Well, typically fighters, depending on how active they are, and especially since they're going to be older fighters, typically it takes 3 to 6 months after they fight. So if the John Jones Aspinall fight happens around the same time as the Ankalaev Pereira rematch, then realistically you could be looking at it probably like 4 to 5 months after that. So if that happens during the summer, then we could be looking at the end of 2025, November, December, as a potential Alex Pereira versus the winner of Tom Aspinall and John Jones.
That would be incredible if we somehow get Jones and Pereira like that. That would be incredible, and the amount of headlines, the amount of money that would be involved in that fight. I mean, incredible. Were there any other headlines that stood out to you in the card?
Yeah, just two really quickly. Justin Gaethje was able to get back in the win column, getting a nice, decision win over Faziev. Now he's won 3 of the last 4, and he's claiming to be the next title contender for Islam Makhachev. And then you had Marcio Ruffy getting a spinning wheel kick, which may be one of the KOs of the year, and continues to show that these guys from the fighting nerds like Kyle Bahayo, Gene Silva, Carlos Pratis, and now Marcio Ruffy is guys who haven't lost and look like on the come up. So Marcio Ruffy is a guy who's going to be fighting our ranked fighters very soon.
What was the other thing? Oh, I forgot to ask you before about the scoring of the fight. You brought it up. Did you see what Adesanya said or no?
Well, I think Adesanya kind of agreed with me. I think he thought Alex Pereira won the fight initially as well.
I think he said like 49-46. He had said in Pereira's favor. That's a pretty significant win, though, right? That's not a close fight, right?
No, that definitely wasn't one-sided. That's a 4-1 scorecard. I think at most, it was 3-2, either Pereira or Ankalaev, which way you want to pick. And there was a judge out there for the UFC who scored it 4-1 for Ankalaev. And I think that's incorrect too. I think it was a very close fight that was only a round difference. And anybody who had it 4-1 definitely wasn't watching the same fight.
I just thought it was funny because I saw that video trending around on social media. Like Adesanya was like sitting on a couch with a buddy watching the fight. And he's like, "Oh, I thought he won 49-46, hands down." And I'm like, "Wait, whoa, what?" Like, I don't think. And I watched most of the fight now that I'm more intrigued by the UFC and watching it. It just looked like Pereira. Like, even though like the fight was close, it looked like he was just a step slow throughout the night.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. And then you want to just give a very quick look into 314 if what's coming to that card.
Oh yeah, that's going to be one of the cards of the year. I mean, there's so many good fights. Obviously, we talked about Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler as the co-main event, and we got Volkanovski going against the fiery Diego Lopez for the vacant featherweight title. And there's many more other great fights as well. So I think this card is going to be way better than 313, and like I said, potentially card of the year.
Yeah, there's a lot of big names. Well, Chandler's on that card too, right?
Yeah, Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah, that's a very interesting fight, in my opinion, at least, because Paddy's actually, even though that's a great physical fight, it's a great personalities fight.
Yeah.
Also, because Paddy can talk with the best of them, and if I hear Chandler one more time about this BS with Connor that he still thinks he needs to fight, I'm going to lose my mind if I hear it again. But we'll see what happens. But that'll do it for this episode of Empty the Bench, episode 270. Make sure you follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench podcast network at ETB Network, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at ETB Network. Follow our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. Find this show amongst all our other shows coming up as well. Please like and subscribe. Hit that little button down below. If you can't listen to the video side, listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. I promise you, even if you can't watch the video, it's funny to listen to us on the audio side too. So take us on the road and listen wherever you can get audio. ETB Network Substack. Check out Alley-Oop Analytics, which is our Substack feature following the NBA trending topics. I won't spoil it, but this is a good one. This is a unique one that we have coming up that's not 100% NBA news. It's more of a phenomenon that happened in the league over the last week. So stay tuned for that as well. And Empty the Bench and the network presented by Playback. Check out our live streams. We're doing some NBA stuff coming up soon. I can tell you that Major League Baseball is on the way. That's the newest sport that's coming to Playback. So we'll be adding that as well. And yeah, just playback.tv/ETB Network if you want to come and join our community for that. Okay. Now that I made it through all the social media and the headlines, that'll do it for this episode. He's Anthony Balester. I'm Nick Morgasen. We will see you next week for episode 271, which will be after all the rigmarole of NFL free agency. So we'll see the rest of the NFL free agency moves. We'll be closer to MLB opening day. We get closer to the NBA playoffs. So there's plenty coming up. So make sure you stay with us, and we will see you next Wednesday for another edition of Empty the Bench. Have a good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.